Hey everyone, it's Connor here from Koyfin. We get a lot of questions asking about custom formulas and columns in Koyfin. And custom columns and formulas allow users to calculate their own outputs or margins or ratios based on the data series that we have inside of Koyfin. They're super helpful when we have the data series and we don't have one of those data series as a native column in Koyfin. You can go ahead and create those yourself. You'll see here I have a list of a couple of examples. We have stock-based comp as a percentage of sales. We have free cash flow margin, cash ratio, and then we also have some custom labels in here as well. So I'm going to show you a few ways of how you can use these, focusing on formulas, labels, dates, numbers, and single line text, which are just text box. And I'm also going to explain a little bit about what happens when you create a custom formula and some of the limitations there as well. So to start, we're going to go ahead and create a brand new watch list from scratch, and we'll call this the custom formula watch list. And we'll go and add some tickers to this watch list as well, just so we have something to look at as we populate. I'm going to import these from a list that I have, and we can import those tickers. And we should see, we'll get rid of that one. We should see that everything in here looks just about right. So we'll add those. So now we've created a watch list and we have a bunch of tickers. Most of these I don't want for the purpose of this demonstration. So we'll just keep the ticker and the name. So let's go up to the columns here. And in the column picker, you have custom columns and formulas. Because this is a brand new watch list, we don't have any. You can import custom columns, but we'll touch on that in just a moment. So we'll start with the most used one, which is a custom formula. So a custom formula is going to allow you to take any of the data series we have in Koyfin and express those as a number, a currency, a percentage, a multiple, or a basis point. You can see all the display formats down here. We'll start with something relatively simple. We'll go with stock-based comp margin. We gave it a name. The next step is to add the data series. So for this one, we're going to need total stock-based comp from the cash flow statement. We'll go with trailing 12 months here. And then we also need revenue as well to express that as a margin. So we'll go last 12 months. Important thing to note here is that when you're creating a custom formula, you usually want to have the same period, whether it's trailing, quarterly, annual, for all of your data series, just so they match up correctly. So we have two data items selected. We want to express that as a formula. So we're going to do A, which is stock-based comp, divided by B. And then this is going to be a percentage. So we can go ahead and create that column. And now we have that freely available. And we have stock-based comp margin there as well. So that's just calculated that for us. And we can do other stuff as well. If free cash flow margin, you can also subtract and divide. So if you want to create equations within equations, we can go ahead and do that here. So we probably already have total assets, take away total liabilities as a native data series in Koyfin. But I just want to show you how you can utilize subtraction. So we'll go trailing, again, total assets and total liabilities. We'll go there. And then to subtract those, all we need to do is A, take away B. And this time we want to show that as a currency. So we can go ahead and create that column. Total assets, take away total liabilities, and then we have the output there as well. And you can rename that at any point in time too. Something else that might be interesting, and it kind of bridges on to the next point that I want to talk about is, having something like a return on capital employed. You can build that in here as well. Well, right now it's not currently a native data series to Koyfin, and what I mean by that is we don't just provide that to you in the platform organically. We do have engineers working on adding return on capital employed, adding return on invested capital, and incremental invested capital as well. So while sometimes you may have to do a workaround in a custom formula, if you let us know which data series that you want native to Koyfin, we can then go ahead and build those in the platform. The benefit of doing that, it means that we can build a time series of that metric in the database, which allows you to show it in the financial analysis section on the time series by quarter or trailing or annual. And it also allows you to chart that data as well. So one of the limitations of a custom formula right now is they're largely confined to the watch list. So if I create stock-based comp margin here, I won't be able to then take that custom formula and chart it on a chart. However, if Koyfin decides, hey, we're going to make stock-based comp a native data series in Koyfin, we're going to build that on a time series, and it means you can chart it. So that's just one of the limitations of custom formulas. A lot of people ask us, can you make these time series so that I can chart them? The short answer is you can't do that today. The longer answer is we're planning on building that into the platform. It's something we'd really like to do. So going back to return on capital employed here, we'll just do one last formula to show you. So we'll call it return on capital employed. We'll do the lazy way here, and we'll just take EBIT, and we'll go for total assets and total current liabilities, I believe it is. So let's go total current liabilities, and we'll take it all on a trailing basis. So we now have our three inputs, and what we want to do here is EBIT divided by total assets, which is B, take away total current liabilities, which is C, and this is going to be a percentage, so we can create that column. And in seconds, we've just calculated the return on capital employed. And you can now sort by the return on capital employed as well. And you might want to add that it's a trailing basis here as well, just to remind you. So some other columns that we can use here, if we go up to custom columns and formulas again, we have labels, we have dates, we have numbers, and we have single line text. So I'm going to show you a little bit about each of those just briefly. So column labels are one of the things that I use personally most often. And there's a lot of different things you can do here as well. I'll create a couple of examples. So we're going to call one rating, and we're going to create another one, and we're going to call it broker for short. We can pick a date column, last rating update. We can call it that. We can go to number. We can say my price target. These are just examples of how you might use each of these. You can, play around with them and come up with your own ideas. So we're going to go ahead and create all of those, and we'll add those to the watch list. So we'll start here with these two labels here. So labels are super useful because it allows you to then bring in grouping as a function, but we'll start with rating. So you might want something simple like a buy, hold, or a sell. So this is your personal portfolio or a basket of companies that you're watching. You can assign labels, and now you have three labels in this column: buy, hold, sell. And you can also assign colors to those as well. So we'll make buy green, we'll make hold yellow, and we'll make sell red. So now you've created those labels. When you go down through your list, you can assign different buy ratings, hold ratings, sell ratings to those, and you can continue going down this list until you've done it all. We'll bring in a date section here as well before we jump into the last label. But one thing that you might use a date for is you might want to remind yourself of when you most recently updated your rating for the buys, just to kind of pair it with this label. So last rating update. So if you came in here, you could quickly see, the last time I gave a rating to Apple was the 1st of November. And the last time I gave a hold to Lululemon was on the 10th, and so on and so on. You could also use these labels as well to create things like conviction scores. So we'll go ahead and create a new label for that, actually. Label. Conviction score. And you can use the same kind of color assign. So if you go 1 through 5, where 1 is, highest conviction, and 3 is kind of, so-so, and then 5 is the weakest conviction, you can again give these color labels. You might grade them through slightly different shades of green coming down. We'll go to the lightest one there, and then a 4 might be a light yellow, and then a 5 might be a dark yellow or a red. So this is conviction score. And again, you can assign dates to these to know when you most recently updated them. You can add the next earnings date here as well to keep you in check. Something that I do in my own personal watch list is I have a simple column here, color labels, which I just call yes or no. And I stick that next to the next earnings date, and I assign each one a color. Yes and no. And when I have the next earnings date next to it, so reported date. So I have these companies here. It reminds me of when they're next reporting. And then it also keeps me in check as to, have I read that earnings report or not? So most of the time I like to see this column just full of yeses. Sometimes it can take me a few days to catch up on earnings, and I usually have a notes next to it as well where I, leave a bit of commentary, or you can actually jump into the security itself and leave personal notes in here. So if you wanted to talk about the Apple quarter was terrible, for example, you can bold this, you can indicate when the quarter was, and you just have a running time series of all of your comments. Super useful if you start using the notes tool, because whenever you maybe haven't looked at a company for a while, you can just catch up on it very quickly when you jump back into your notes there. So you might have Starbucks here, and it might be detailing the last quarter, and it can help catch you up. So jumping back into it, we've got a little bit of context on dates and labels. Another way that's really super helpful is brokerages. So I like to assign labels to my brokerages here. So let's go Schwab and IBKR. And again, you can assign labels to these. So let's give Schwab gray, and let's give IBKR a kind of bluish tint. And you can go down this list. So let's say this is your portfolio. We do have a bunch of portfolio tools in here in Koyfin so that you have weightings and total gain loss and all that good stuff, purchase dates. And if you want to aggregate a view of multiple portfolios in here, you can do that with this broker button. More broadly, we recently launched model portfolios, but we do have plans to build something for individual portfolio tracking, as well as having the ability to view that on an aggregate basis, and then also have some nice exposure breakdowns and risk metrics there as well. That's something that's in the works, and we hope to ship some point next year. And it means that you no longer have to track a portfolio and watch list. You can actually have a dedicated tool for that. But just to explain what I was talking about there, if I have all of my companies labeled by broker or rating, it means when I come into the group function, you can actually adjust or organize your watch list based on those groups. So if we go rating here, it's going to split out all the buys for me. It's going to split out all the holds and the sells. If I change that to broker, it means I can aggregate stuff per broker and have a look at it here. And it's super useful when you have weightings in here as well. You can see each individual securities weighting as a constituent of the aggregate portfolio, so across both of your portfolios. And if you put in summary rows here as well, if you put in the weighted average one down here, for example, it means that it's going to add a line item down here, and it's going to give you the weighting of your Schwab account as a percentage of your total invested assets, as well as your IBKR as well. And you can group this by, multiple functions, whether it's sector, asset class. So you can see quickly, how much money do I have in equities versus bonds or cash? How much exposure do I have to the tech space versus, luxury, whatever it might be. Super useful there. So we're going to jump back into this table and just cover a last couple things here. So the number column, custom column, is a sense allowing you to put in numbers. So if I have an Apple price target, it might be useful to put in last price here. So put last price next to that one. If I think Apple is a buy right now and my price target is $250, we can put that in there. If I think Lululemon is a hold right now and my price target is, or you might want to put my buy target as well. So entry desired. So desired entry price, for example, you might want to buy Apple at 165. You might want to buy Lulu at 350. All these kinds of things. If you have a separate watch list for potential buys or holdings, you can use this to kind of indicate where you want to buy it, what your price target is, or whatever have you. And the My Notes section is really great as well. So in the context of tracking a portfolio, after each quarter, you might indicate that you've read it, and then you might have some notes here. If you don't want to type up a whole note like this, where you have a lot of rich text there that you can use in tables and columns and all this good stuff, you might just want to put a quick couple of notes in there, whether it's a reminder to read the earnings call or a reminder that they have an analyst day coming up. You might say that the TAM looks busted here. For Apple, you might say Lululemon competitor Aloe looks to be gaining steam. Monitor their Series A. I don't think there is a Series A, but I think they're raising money. Aloe, one of Lululemon's competitors, but whatever it might be, you can leave notes there. You can also expand these so that you can read them. And don't worry about if that takes up too much space. You can squish it and hover your mouse over these words, and it will show you in a text box exactly what's being said. So I think these tools are really underutilized in Koyfin, but they're super powerful, and it allows you to quickly chop and change between views, whether it's a basket of companies you're watching, companies within a sector, or your own portfolio. Blending these custom formulas with things like portfolio tools is really going to give you an edge in using Koyfin. And it's also got its use cases when you're working with teams as well. So let's say this is a portfolio, a list of companies that we own, and I'm in a team of 10. You can also share these watch lists as well, thanks to that recent update that we shipped last month. So if I add in, Greg at BC Capital Corp, .com, this is made up. I could then share that, and I can change their editor access or viewership access and have a whole team of people working in this watch list like a Google Doc. So if I gave them editor access, they could come in here and change their conviction scores. Something that's interesting as well. With this, like, my name is Connor, so this could be Connor's conviction score. You could also have David's conviction score here, and have the 1, 2, 5 system, and you could have the whole team's conviction scores here, and on certain dates here, they could be asked to kind of update their conviction scores for all of the positions. And then you could do something at the bottom where you kind of download this data and create an average of the conviction scores and have conversations around that as a team. That's something that's quite interesting. You could also, if you have a community or a group of friends that you share your watch list with, you can share that and allow them to view it at all times without giving them editor access. It could be a watch list of companies you're looking at. Loads of use cases here for watch lists, particularly when it comes to sharing. And when you blend in sharing with custom columns and formulas and portfolio tools, it really does improve the watch list significantly, and you can get a lot of great stuff out of it. So I hope that helps. We get a lot of questions about people asking how to best utilize custom formulas and labels. And I think that when you really kind of get into the weeds of it, you can really build something quite special. So as always, thank you for listening. If you want to reach out to us, you can contact the Koyfin help desk. You can reach out to me directly, connor.mcneil@koyfin.com with your questions, or you can always hit us up on Twitter @KoyfinCharts. We're super responsive there as well. In the meantime, you can also drop a comment down below in the YouTube comment section. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.